In 2012, well over a decade ago, Telltale Studios spawned a genre almost exclusive to itself, the narrative choice game, with The Walking Dead Season 1, and took the world by storm. However, just 6 years later, their final season of The Walking Dead was released, and sadly, Telltale went bankrupt and closed their doors. It's been so long since there's been a choice game, an entire generation of gamers have no idea what the hell it is.
Supposedly it's like a story mode that you choose, kind of like No, I'm Not Human.
Until now. From the ashes of old Telltale rose AdHoc Studios. But how would they return to their throne? Be as big as they were back in the day? The answer they chose were three things: superheroes, e-celebs, and waifus. Damn, did it work! 1 million copies in 10 days, stratospheric player counts, millions of views from YouTubers, with the e-celebs themselves recording themselves playing the game to their big audiences. Personally, I think it's a great story game and the success is completely warranted. I truly missed this kind of game. I felt alone in crossing my fingers hoping it'd do well and be good, but damn did it exceed my expectations! It's not perfect, and I see the flaws of the genre that people got weary of when Telltale was churning these games out, but overall, this is classic Telltale at its most refined. So, what's the game about? You play Mecha Man, a generational legacy superhero, a mech suit and mantle passed down from son of Robert to Robertson. 'Cause your name is Robert. Robertson.
Oh, you mean a name like Robert Robertson III?
The third? 3 times this happened?
A legacy of death and debt, as every Robertson has died in that suit. The game starts off with you on a mission of revenge for the murder of your father by the masked villain Shroud, to disastrous results as you fall into a trap and the Mecha Man suit is destroyed, and you are way too broke to ever fix it. Fortunately for you, supers are as common in this world as health insurance, and when all hope seems lost, a 7-foot-tall, blonde Amazonian goddess named Best Girl, Common America, Blonde Blazer, offers you a job. In exchange for fixing your suit, you become a dispatcher for SDN, Superhero Dispatch Network, a corporate superhero company that dispatches heroes for emergencies for those it covers. The reason it was so easy to get the job isn't just because Mecha Man is famous, but because it's the worst batch of superheroes SDN's got, the Z-Team. A bunch of former villains in a reform program called the Phoenix Program. They suck so bad and have such terrible personalities, no dispatcher they've had lasts longer than a week, and the program itself is at risk of being shut down. So it's up to you, your wit and experience, to wrangle them into something respectable. Apparently that's very Mighty Ducks, but I've never seen it. What starts off as a superhero revenge story seamlessly turns into a superhero office workplace comedy drama thing. And it's pretty good. The gameplay is a mix between visual novel and superhero dispatch sim. You go through cutscenes, frequently picking choices, and then have 1 or 2 sections per episode where you read descriptions of missions. Then you test your English skills to guess how these descriptions translate to certain stats. There's the occasional QTE, which you can just turn off if you want, but I think they're fun and immersive enough. Ultimately, if you dislike narrative-focused games and don't think that's enough gameplay, stay away. AdHoc has removed the free walk sections in their old games where you could obviously walk around and interact with stuff. Sad, but they were always more of a relic of Telltale actually making adventure games back in the day. They were never made to actually be that interesting or meaningful. And while as a human I will always miss something that's gone, the dispatch sections that replace them are legit fun enough to be a decent game by themselves. You only have so many heroes who could be on other missions or resting, and there is always a job or two on a ticking clock. You try to balance successfully completing a job by sending the right number of people and having people available for other jobs in the future. Successful missions means leveling them up, and you can also unlock new powers and thus mechanics for them. Once the ball gets rolling, the gamer dopamine from number going up and your team getting better totally hits. That's not to mention they've actually done a fairly solid job of integrating gameplay and story. I'm talking ludonarrative resonance. Ludonarrative just means like gameplay and story. Yeah, it's a super pretentious term. Some people just gotta justify their degrees. So, how do you sell that your Z team isn't just a ball of stats, but people that are on the Z team for a reason? Well, during cut day, have them constantly sabotage and injure each other so they'll be ahead on the leaderboards and keep their jobs. That emotionally primes the player for the following scene where you give them tough love. I was totally as annoyed as Robert would be after these morons screwed up my dispatch section. Want to feel the consequence of firing someone or pissing someone off? Well, when they're gone, have a billion jobs show up. So you're woefully understaffed as you pull hairs trying to figure out the least losing way to handle things.
We need you to send somebody else. This is too much.
We're out of somebody's. You're gonna have to make do.
Yeah, well, karma's a fucking bitch, huh, Robert?
But it doesn't just work negatively. The leveling up, the successes, working together, that builds investment. When Water Piss Boy joins a team with almost ones and stats across the board, you sort of regret giving him a shot.
Waterboy is here to help. Excuse me?
Hey, no way.
This is a joke, right? Is this
A joke?
Nope, Waterboy, it's not a joke.
But in a few episodes, after enough missions and level ups, he can become a solid member of the team. You might feel a bit proud of him. Maybe a bit proud of yourself if you teamed him up with someone who gives an XP bonus, feeling like a smart leader that realized someone's potential. And when he saves you, despite not having that much screen time, you go, "That's my boy! That's my boy!" When the Z team finally warms up to Robert, it's after a lot of dispatch sections. So you're way more likely to believe it than if you had just watched the all cutscenes videos on YouTube or something. The gameplay is vital context for the story, not a part of the game that's in a totally separate universe. It doesn't work the other way around though. The dispatch sections don't affect the story. Invisigirl will still be stupid no matter how high you get her intellect. I'll get a little more into this later. Really though, the key selling point of dispatch, of choice games, and what makes decisions hard is that single dreaded line of text. Blank will remember that. With the idea that your decisions matter, the consequences of your actions are what makes your decisions interesting, and leave a lot of people like me craving for next week's episode, heavily anticipating the destination the road we picked took us. The final part of the Telltale experience, though, is the end of each episode, where you get the stats screen. You get to see the percentage of players that made, or didn't make, the same choices as you. This gets to the heart of the community aspect, even if you don't interact with it directly, because now you start judging everyone else for their choices.
I kissed her.
Are you dead ass? What are you?
Wait. I just wanted to see. I wanted to see my curiosity.
What type of impulsive? Are you for real?
To compare ourselves, feel better about ourselves, feel bad about ourselves, or dunk on others for being wrong and picking Invisigal.
I picked the wrong girl, dude. I'm such an idiot. Oh man, I feel like my taste is just fuck. Why did they show her as something so cool when I made a decision to pick Invisigal? Fuck!
Truly, out of all the major key decisions AdHoc could have had us make, it was truly diabolical to make it waifu wars, fueling the flames of algorithm and fandom with a civil war like that. 4chan was very funny to read as the episodes came out.
My name's Invisible Cook.
Your face is next to a side of my face. I see that I know you, of you. You're Mecha Man.
Never meet your heroes, kid.
Did you fuck or what?
I appreciate the game being more or less finished, so that meant there could be a weekly double drop of episodes. They were my weekly highlights, and it's much better than waiting an unknown amount of months between episodes like the old days, and also much better than a full-on binge. The binge experiment has proven itself to be way too much for most people to retain all at once. 2 hours a week is enough time to process, chew on, and discuss what you've just experienced. It also gives disgusting content creators like me more time to keep up, because the media is just relevant for a longer period of time. The game will feel very different playing it all at once, but in terms of cultivating a temporary zeitgeist, it's been great. I wrangled my friend into playing Dispatch with me as episodes dropped. Watching him play through the game every week and forcing him to explain himself was a blast. It's an experience unique to a good choice game, games in general, and why I always prefer games that take advantage of their interactive nature, as opposed to the very linear games that don't bother. Obviously, good linear stories can be told, but come on, play into having gameplay a little. Though really, even though you play Robert, it feels like Robert plays you. Robert Robertson, played by Aaron Paul, clearly has the best writing and best performance in the cast. Every short sentence the player can pick is expanded upon with so much more dry wit and intelligence than any React Andy or Gassy Gamer could.
A real hero puts their ass on the line. A real hero can't just press a button and make their problems disappear.
The suit isn't what made me a superhero. It was how I did my fucking job that made me Mecha Man. Based on what I saw today, you wouldn't last a day as Mecha Man. Because there isn't a mech suit in the universe that'll keep you from being a selfish fucking asshole.
It's like you're giving him the rough subject matter, and he turns it into this amazing speech.
Concerned, I'm worried.
Well, you're second-guessing everything. You do it all the time. I don't think you have a stutter. I think you have a confidence issue. You're worried you're gonna say the wrong thing so you won't finish a sentence. I'm blowing your mind?
As a result, the player feels so much cooler, smarter, and funnier than we deserve. I often found myself going, yeah, what he said. And in the late game, I was going, yeah, he's going to crush this, as I pick things. Dude seriously has maxed out charisma. He even auto-parries every insult with witty comebacks only a writer could think of, and it feels totally natural.
Miss Blazer, maybe if you gave us a dispatcher who knew what they were doing, you wouldn't have to throw no one.
Hey, Nikki Mirage, I'm standing right here. You can talk to me.
I wasn't talking to you, bitch. Which weak-ass superhero team did you come from? Fucking Geek Squad?
Doesn't matter where I'm from, Cardi C. What matters is I'm here to figure out who stays and who goes.
Yeah. He's just such a useful male main character, it's actually kinda shocking. You know how many nebbish white dudes I've seen in media? Way too many. Aaron Paul sounds like he's perpetually on decaf. It's very jarring compared to his usual acting, and sometimes it's a bit weird.
And the crowd goes wild.
But overall, it really sells him as a world-weary superhero, down on his luck. Just has seen it all. It's a good performance. Robert Robertson really is one of the coolest player avatars in gaming in a long time. He beats the crap out of the mute protagonists we usually get. When he starts pulling cool and attractive women, what would usually just be unbelievable wish fulfillment is just believable wish fulfillment. Yeah, of course people would be drawn to him. He's a cool dude. He feels competent to the player, let alone the other characters. So, I know I call this a visual novel, but really, that alone doesn't cut it. It's a TV show novel at this point. It's basically just a TV show you can play. People, me included, say it's better than TV. The writing, animation, acting, direction, music, everything, it's all there. There are plenty of times I was playing this and went, yeah, this could just be on Netflix. Now, this isn't necessarily a glowing sign of transcendent quality. Rather, TV just really sucks on average. A lot of it is purposely designed to be slop to be consumed and discarded on a streaming service. Quantity, not quality, is the name of the game. Like, really, the average shot of Invincible can be pretty poverty.
Hey. Was that me? Why'd I look so miserable? So miserable.
There's a reason people could so quickly believe the idea that it was animated in a North Korean slave studio. Though the line between game and show is actually pretty blurry in both a figurative and literal sense. Not just from the quality, but because the game is mostly pre-rendered. So at higher resolutions, there's clear artifacting. Before he started playing, Inko and I looked at the Steam page and guessed his laptop might struggle to play something that nice. But we gave it a shot, and it worked amazingly. Inko brought up that maybe it had to do with the clearly 2D backgrounds, a gorgeous way to save on performance. That the PS1 days were back! But it turns out they just pre-rendered everything. which kinda sucks. The only thing live rendered is the dispatch sections. So no, you can't rip the models for wholesome nor nefarious purposes. No fan animations with official models. No modding Goku into the game. Because you're just playing what's essentially the best FMV game ever.
Number 1! Yeah!
Look at how bare bones these graphics options are. There's no way it's live rendered. There are obvious pros and cons to this. It means that this game will run great on everything, and the animation and character models will always look how they're supposed to. So a lot of people will be able to play this and see some pretty stuff. They apparently outsourced this to a Netflix animation team, AdHoc Studios, who did a great job. The animation, the facial animation especially, good god, is light years ahead of anything in the Telltale era, because it's just made by dedicated animators. But that leads us to the downsides. This time locks the game to 1080p, because even at 1440p, I was seeing some artifacting. The devs have said that the game looking timeless was a priority.
Like, we want people to look at our show or our game and think it's a show. And it looks so good that in 10 years, people will look at it and go, yeah, that still looks great.
But making it pre-rendered mandates a remastered version of this game down the line as resolution standards get higher. And they're also making a video game with branching storylines and player choice. Branching storylines are super exciting, but they're also really hard to do. The amount of scenarios and combination of choices you have to take into account shoot up exponentially the more decisions there are. The more complexity in the system, the more potential cracks. But if all your animation is outsourced, you aren't going to be able to really change or add new things to scenes in a timely fashion, because they don't have the in-house talent nor resources to do it. The best you can do is remix what videos you have. It worked out in the end, and it's AdHoc's first game, but it's definitely a clear weakness. Getting back to it, the big difference between this and a proper TV show is that you're steering the ship. Games, when done well, are way more engaging than most passive mediums by necessity. Instead of wondering why the main character did or didn't do something, you're justifying it to yourself and others why you decided to do what you did. You're going, I made the right call, or I hope I made the right call. Not just staring at someone else, shaking your head as they make decisions you would never make, and then getting detached as a result. It's a lot easier to empathize with yourself. But hey, I've definitely played games where you had choices, but was bored out of my mind. Loads of interactivity, but nothing good to interact with. Doesn't work. But when you pair mandatory active participation with a good story, it's magical. What really makes the story of Dispatch great is that it doesn't waste your time. Personally, in my own writing, I love taking my time and exploring characters and beats as I build up to my major set pieces. Then I look at my massive word count and I'm like, oh, well, thank God I'm not on a network or something, I'd be screwed. It made me realize that tight script writing is most likely a mandatory necessity when your stories take money and budget to realize. You literally can't afford to have characters yap.
They came back with my script and they said, this is actually going to be about a 30 to 40 minute short film. You have the budget for half of that.
So you streamline the hell out of the story. When you have a visual medium like this, you can convey a lot about a character just by how you animate them. Take for example Blonde Blazer in episode 1. Everything about Blonde Blazer's entrance truly frames her as a messiah, a savior. From the lighting of the lamppost giving her an actual aura, to the upwards angle of the camera as she descends to you. How casual and warm she is after saving you, emanating safety and strength. Even afterwards, she almost seems like she's glowing in every shot. Shiny blonde hair lady. Plus how she's giving virtually every romantic green flag in existence in your presence.
Can you show him his desk?
Sure. What's that arm squeeze about?
You want one? Here.
Fuck off.
Like seriously, the game's so well directed that in the many playthroughs I've seen, Everyone is just so absorbed in the climax of episode 1, no one notices how absurdly idyllically romantic the entire universe became when she gingerly removes your mask. The city buildings become the cosmos, motes of dust refract light and become the stars. For the choice, they try to make her as pretty and detailed and bright as they can get away with. So much emotion and information packed into a single hangout with a superhero you just met, yet it feels like no time passed at all. And objectively, it didn't. Episode 1 is just 40 minutes long. Wow, I can't believe I just said 40 minutes isn't that long. Wouldn't that be a long episode of a TV show? It's just a testament to how wickedly paced Dispatch feels. At the end of every episode, I always went, aw, that's it? There's always a new conflict, a new situation to deal with, and from those conflicts, you learn more about the story or characters. Something always feels accomplished. It's crazy because this is as low stakes as it gets. The fate of the world doesn't depend on your office politics. But it's Robert's problem, your problem, and solving these problems requires your attention. Does Invisigal have a shot? Should you value the needs of the team over what you think is the right thing to do? Dispatch made sure you were prepared to answer those dilemmas. By, again, it's great pacing. It seamlessly feeds information to you the whole game whilst being entertaining. The fate of these characters wouldn't matter at all to the player if the game didn't give you the context and build investment in them. I'd say the story's major focus is on building up the characters. Becoming Mega Man again is always in the back burner, but the main villain Shroud isn't really a factor for most of the game, despite their strong presence early on. But when they do show up, so much more is at stake because you care way more. The humor's also a key aspect of Dispatch. Honestly, I don't really laugh out loud much at all as a person.
Why don't you laugh at anything, ding dong? I don't know.
But it was mostly entertaining. But most importantly, it felt naturalistic to me, so it drew me more into the world. Chase is witty as hell, because he was an accomplished speedster hero. Invisigal tries and fails to be witty, because she's very new to this hero thing.
Let's figure out if the perp is still there.
Okay, Lieutenant. Fuck, I can't think of a character from Cop Show.
The goon speak is occasionally unrealistic, though.
That guy I threw, he landed on the roof, right? Phew.
I've heard some people think it's overall cringe, but I think the actual hit-to-cringe ratio is fairly positive. Plus, the story earns enough goodwill to ultimately just not fret too much about the occasional failed joke. The focus on making sure you care about the characters and what they're going through is so obvious when I compare it to Invincible. You can give me 100 seasons of Invincible, and I will never care about Duplicate and The Immortal. I don't care about anyone that isn't Omni-Man and fall asleep when any of the other planks of wood are on screen. I do have some pretty strong criticisms, but I'd have to get into proper spoiler territory. The biggest non-spoiler version of what I'd have to say is, well, I guess I wish there was more game. I know, it's easy for me to say as someone that didn't have to fund it, but it's still a flaw. At least 2 more episodes or something, because there are a few major story beats, the finale included, that could have used more context or time with the characters. This is objectively proven by the comics. You can read them in the digital deluxe edition. There's a varying degree of characterization and backstory given to characters, and in some cases, extremely vital information that massively informs you of a decision they made. The fact that Blonde Blazer lore is hidden behind a $10 paywall massively sucks. Okay, I'm trying to avoid ruining the Telltale magic, especially since a lot of you might have never played a Telltale game before. So skip to this time code to when and if I somehow manage to wrangle together a conclusion. Okay, time to get in depth. When Dispatch is at its best, you're second-guessing every decision you make, dealing with the fear that every decision could bite you in the ass if you aren't careful.
I'm Mecha Man.
It is you. You little shit.
My mind raced a mile a minute when Blonde Glazer asked me which of her identities I should go on a date with, really considering what it meant to her and our relationship. I felt like I made the right call in letting her choose whatever made her comfortable. I agonized over whether or not I should give Shroud the astral pulse or the fake, and neither felt right, so I chose the weird option, to give Shroud both, because I had faith Robert would see something I didn't, and he gives the most amazing speech that goads Shroud into using one of them, and it turned out it was a fake, saving the day. This tension and anxiety, the feeling of taking a leap of faith, that's Telltale magic. But having been here before, I know what the secret formula behind Telltale magic is. Telltale magic is a magic trick, and like a real stage magician, it's not real magic. It's misdirection, an illusion that shatters once you know the real deal. The reality is, the vast majority of the time, your decisions don't matter at all. Let's see how all the options for the second Blonde Blazer date play out.
Would that be a date with Blonde Blazer or Mandy?
Oh, I don't know. Which would you prefer? And that's not a trap. I'm both of them. That sounded weird out loud, but you know what I mean.
Hey, like you said, they're both you, and you know what? You are who I like. So, I'll be happy either way. So yeah, Team Mandy for me. Maybe one with Blonde Blazer to compare against?
Okay. I'll let you know when I come up with something.
And if I had just given Shroud the astral pulse, I would have watched him power up, and then just punched him in the face. I'd have won anyway. You can literally press no buttons whatsoever, and you can't possibly fail. The game automatically picks options for you if dialogue timers run out.
I can't just disappear, okay?
And the dispatch sections I talk so highly of, with their ludo-narrative resonance, time to talk about the opposite. Ludo-narrative dissonance. When the gameplay and story don't match up. You can fail every single dispatch section by not doing any of them. Even let a chunk of the city burn down, and you still get told your dick's big.
We're here to assess Robert's first shift. Aside from whatever happened here, I thought it was pretty good.
Flames are spreading to the houses. We need to evacuate.
I was about to click that. What?
Told you, Robbie.
I was watching on the monitor. The work you did dispatching. I don't think the Z team has ever had a better shift than that.
We just might need to confront the fact that it might be the best they can do.
What?
This is maximum game journo mode. There is no fail state. What do the little smatterings of self-expression even matter if you can be just as successful doing absolutely nothing? Do nothing and win! The only thing that really changes is that default Robert will have Vizzy leave, not redeemed. There's the ending Robert title you get in the credits, but beyond that, yes, you still save the day, and everyone except Vizzy is doing great. Look, I get it. It's not fun or interesting to create a lot of game over screens most players won't remember or even see. It's immersion shattering and pace breaking to have to restart from death. But a single consequence at the very end! Really? So the worst timeline is virtually identical to the best ones? Give us some sort of failure during a playthrough, people not liking us, people being worse friends, a worse Mecha Man suit, something! Give us something to avoid, a pit to jump over, to reward the player for playing the game! Make it so the people that put in the work are rewarded more than the people that just showed up. But nah, A's for everyone! In episode 1, there's just a single line Aaron Paul has that changes depending on how well you do during the dispatch.
And that it's natural for me to end up mid-tier.
They could have done that throughout the game, just a line or two commenting on how well you're doing, but nah, that was way too much. Some will say, if the illusion works, and you didn't even notice it when you played the first time, why are you getting upset about it? The reality is, once you finish a game you really like, you'll naturally just look it up and talk about it. Maybe fire up another playthrough to see what would have happened differently. But it sucks to then have your answer be, not much. It just feels bad to be punished for caring more. That all the effort and thought and self-expression you put into your decisions the first go around didn't matter at all. How extremely similar your experiences are with people who chose very differently from you. and that all the tension I felt, doing my best to save people, was fake. Invisigal will save herself if you don't. She's not in any danger whatsoever. It's a retroactive souring of my first playthrough. This is the exact same problem the original Telltale faced. Amazing first playthroughs retroactively ruined by learning about the illusion of choice, illusion of variance. And because there were so many games, you stopped caring more and more about the decisions you were making. People just sort of became nihilistically weary of it. Less excited, less immersed, less anxious to make decisions. That's the future I'm afraid of, the past repeating itself. The late Telltale games actually did this better. I'm still fond of Tales from the Borderlands and Batman for this, but unfortunately the company was on fire at that point, so it was too little too late. This is AdHoc's first game as an independent studio, so this makes sense unfortunately. What little branching decisions did exist, on top of how huge the final episode is, probably cost a lot of money.
So, how did you afford all that? You must have spent hundreds of thousands.
Millions. So you'll understand when the check comes.
And they almost went bankrupt whilst developing this game. This meant they had to fall back on the old reliable lack of narrative variance. Play it safer. Sacrifices behind the scenes had to be made somewhere. But this is what I meant earlier when I said I wish there was more game. Not only do I want more context, but also more actual differences in your choices.
They look fucking identical, Robert.
Either way, it'd require more cutscenes to be made. It's a reason I'm so happy the game did great and had a great enough story to make up for this. But I do not want it to be the norm going forward, if they can help it. I don't want to be less and less excited to play their games going forward, because gaming as a whole has moved forward. In the years since the choice game vanished, other games tackled this problem. There are games like Disco Elysium, which took the world by storm. But there's also one of my favorite games ever, a relatively new indie one, Scarlet Hollow, and it does have an absurd amount of branching paths based on your choices. Characters can just not exist in some playthroughs, and has the most complex character relationship system I've ever seen. So many goddamn graphs and charts going on behind the scenes in that game. When I played the game, and when Inko played the game, we had extremely different experiences, because we played different characters and are different people. It's incredible. I know, objectively, it's going to be hard. Scarlet Hollow is a visual novel, not a fully blown animated TV series starring Aaron Paul. So it's not nearly as expensive. Also, Scarlet Hollow is currently around 900,000 words to account for all the player choice, and isn't even finished yet, 6 years after its initial early access release. It's time-consuming to make what amounts to multiple different games. But at the same time, I can't forget I played it. I can't forget Disco Elysium or the many great CRPGs out there. I can't unlearn how amazing this medium can be, pushed to its limits. I'm not saying you have to go bankrupt in pursuit of greatness, just that you have to pursue it at all. Be bigger and better than the Telltale of old. They're already on that path by storytelling quality alone. They just need to step it up as games as well. I first started making this review before the game was finished, so really, me having such a negative sentiment about it surprised even me. I guess that's why you should finish games before you review them. You never know what might happen. What I actually thought was going to take up a majority of this video was the following section, the chronicling of my journey through the game, my many thoughts and feelings. So it's going to be way more positive, for the most part. I actually first experienced this batch through the demo, which is just the first half of episode 2, which is office workplace orientation stuff. So it was shocking that the start of episode 1 is so cool and action-packed. They know how to start strong, hook people in. It was also a good idea to make Robert a tech superhero. That way, he could both be a legend in the world of heroes, but also be relatable by losing his powers. However, he could gain them back through resources, and thus has the perfect reason to need to join SDN and get the story started. When Shroud immediately figures out with absurd accuracy what my shield percentage is, and is a masked man, my media brain just assumes it's my dad. Even though the later news segment says it's a different guy, and my dad's dead, I just assume there's a twist. When Blonde Blazer shows up, with her being perfectly wonderful and offering me the deal of a lifetime, I immediately assume she's suspicious. When I get the chance to kiss her, I know that because this is episode 1, that this will not work. You can't romance anyone and anything that fast. I kiss her anyway. I'm walking into potential hell with eyes wide open. If she's not evil, then I'm ignoring a mountain of green flags and not seizing the initiative. If she is evil, it'll be interesting drama to get my heart broken. I'm just completely and fully immersed into Dispatch at this point. I am 100% in sync with Robert, how he feels about the job and Invisigal, whilst being optimistic she can do better. Vizzy is weirdly enthusiastic about doing a good job and working with me. She's just kinda dumb. She's weirdly extremely vulnerable and expressive with her emotions. It's genuinely unrealistic how, amenable to reason she seems. I knew someone just like her, and he was a giant, fun dumbass, but was very stubborn to change.
You behaved pretty bad with Mr. Ice Cream back there.
Huh? I wasn't being positive enough. I'm gonna help this couple. I'm gonna help this weird.
No one gets far in life without developing the instinct and ability to defend their ego. Chase is objectively correct. Vizzy's type in real life is usually just a black hole that sucks in and destroys any attention and affection and reason you try to give them. I flirt with Blonde Blazer the entire episode, only to learn she has a boyfriend, who seems to be Omni-Man. So not only was I romantically cucked, and not told this immediately. If he finds out, I have multiple seasons of The Boys and Invincible in my head about what's going to happen to me. I suppose I have to move on, and now I'm thinking about what my romantic options actually are. Like everyone, I'm praying demon girls on the table. If I tricked one person in the first half of the video into thinking she was, I will have successfully shared my pain. I was really looking forward to finally meeting the team and the chance to talk to Demon Lady. But I was pleasantly surprised the episode started with the Mecha Man rebuilding plotline proceeding. I feel like many lesser shows or games would just forget that and just do the main gimmick of the show. It's a green flag that the writers have their shit together. I am shocked twice in a row. Blazer apparently dumped Phenomenon immediately after the end of episode 2, and now I have to fire someone, but she immediately folds on it.
I'm going to cut someone from the Z team. Or you are, rather. Maybe I'm just looking to shake things up all over the place. Create a sense of urgency.
You sure about that?
Well, less sure now. You think it's a bad idea?
I'm just not sure how it'll play out.
Great writing. I am again 100% with Robert emotionally here at all times. During the Z-Team meeting, their sabotages, and the final pep talk with Vizzy. It's, again, a crazy display of unrealistic vulnerability, but it's nice. She seems to earnestly want to do this hero thing, otherwise she wouldn't care at all about not having hero powers. This quiet moment is a reminder of the sincere dramatic ambitions shown in episode 1. Depth hasn't taken a vacation. However, I am still confronted with the choice to cut someone, and I choose no one. Blazer showed quick deference to that idea early on. I've been working here for like a single day, so it makes sense to give me more time to see if we truly have lost causes. So I assume that if I let the timer run out, the game might reward me with a secret response that follows my line of thinking. The game defaults to cunning sonar. I think this is stupid, and having played Telltale games before, immediately know that making this decision mandatory means whoever you cut is going to come back evil. This is where the devs get freaking devious. There are so many crazy things in this episode. Vizzy fantasizing about you, making you decide between Phenomenon and Waterboy, and who to lock into a romance. Episode's just jam-packed with big decisions. It's also at this point, I become a full pausey Paul. I pause decisions, taking a really long time to think about it.
Well, sometimes it's more about the person than the powers.
I gave Waterboy a shot, so I could give myself a shot to not get murdered by cucking Omni-Man.
Spaghetti.
I actually went so wide-eyed when forced to choose between Blazer and Vizzy, I paused the game and went to make lunch, thinking about it the whole time. I thought this wouldn't be as soon as it was, but mid-season makes sense, and they even primed you with thinking about these girls in horny-ass ways at the start of the episode. being real, most people will be lucky if one of these girls ever asked you out like this. I'm not that attracted to her and think she's a hot mess, but would still absolutely fold if Vizzy asked, because I know that's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of thing. I finally realized that I turned down adding Superman to the team for the option of potentially dating Blazer safely, so I might as well do it. I also think it's a red flag that she hasn't explained much at all about why she dumped her ex. But the rest of the package, a thoughtful, kind person who I can have fun back and forth with, is the warm and chill kind of future I want. But I still know so little about her. She could be Shroud or Shroud adjacent. But hey, if she's evil, maybe gay kissing will stop it? My heart breaks a little when I see Vizzy get rejected. Even if I don't really want to be with her, I still like her and don't like seeing her sad. They made her being sad so detailed. The dinner with Blazer leads to a Shrek-esque magical girl transformation. And she goes from an 11 out of 10 Superwoman to a 10 out of 10 Disney princess. Oh no.
You're disappointed.
Are you kidding? I can't tell. Are you joking or am I joking?
It's a big difference.
You're what, 2 inches shorter?
And a brunette, come on, it's...
And she prepares a cute-ass last-minute dinner for you? I thought we were going somewhere. God damn, that is cute as hell. This girl is actually a superwoman. Not just literally, but like, what girl would do something this cute for a dude? It's supposed to be the other way around. Oh my god, look at that cute little anime twirl. Bitch is Toru. Come on, this is too much. I would marry her yesterday. My heart is absurdly happy. My brain is just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Also, the idea that Blazer sets up this entire dinner in the courtyard and you can just leave her hanging is heart annihilating. The game's crazy for not showing you how evil you are for ditching her. She's also weirdly mature about it. She never brings it up. Usually with romance in media, the entire story builds up to the romance happening and ends once it does. The actual relationship phase never happens, and if it does, it's usually on the rocks. Because writers want conflict and have no idea what a happy relationship is like. So, suffice to say, I am obscenely happy when Mandy checks in on me. That she actively sought me out, wanting a second date. This is pure, fluffy wish fulfillment, and I love it. It's crazy Vizzy romancers don't get to experience the small but precious joy I did.
Bro, you're so lucky.
I know.
Wait, he can hear everything. Is he Shroud? Chase asks if I'm gonna kill Shroud. I say yes, of course I am. He got brought in the right way and just broke out and became a super criminal mastermind. He killed my dad in cold blood. He causes so much harm, there's no real rational reason to let him live. Overall, 6 is a great episode about trust. The episode begins with Robert still being closed off about his identity. But you go bar tripping, which escalates into a brawl, and that changes things. For a second, I didn't think we were gonna get a 6 superpower bar fight, with how it immediately cut away after you get hit. That they couldn't afford it or something. But damn, am I glad they jump scared me with it. There's quite a few rough edges in the animation, kinda centered around Malevola, weirdly enough. So yeah, the budget was tight, but overall, yeah, extremely fun, chaotic brawl, great direction. Going through a bar fight with the team earns my trust in them, and makes me want to reciprocate the gesture, reveal your Mecha Man. The good vibes follow onto episode 6, even after a murder attempt from Flambe. Golem is sorta a real one for saving you, and weirdly, if you don't have Waterboy, who obviously is a real one, so is Malevola? In a Phenomenon playthrough, she's the only one that remotely tries to stop Flambe. Phenomenon is right there, and he's more enthusiastic about talking about himself than making sure you aren't Carbon. I know the Malevola romance dream is dead at this point, so they're just twisting the knife with the whiffs of characterization she gets. 6 is my favorite episode in Dispatch. There's just so many earned emotional highs. We are now completely comfy maxing, just way more comfortable with the gang after episode 5. Seeing them watch the Mecha Man test at the start, I knew they were there because I told them and they wouldn't be there otherwise. The feeling of trust that I'm with a gang, not alone in my journey to become Mecha Man again. The relief of his secret being out, met with pure acceptance. It's great. I explode though, which I'm both happy and sad with. I'm happy because a nagging feeling in the back of my brain realized that if Royd really just made another astral pulse, the world building would be torn asunder. There'd be no reason not to have 100 Mecha Mans, or a network of superheroes at all, if you can just make another astral pulse. I'm sad though that I somehow was in the point-blank center of an explosion, and Royd is more messed up. And the dude's clearly tough as hell. He's blatantly got super strength. Is the cockpit explosion resistant or something? It's very nice of Blazer to cover for you while you're out, but I've been browsing the web. No one online trusts her. I don't know if I made the right call to trust her. She could still...
Oh, one sec. What are you doing up?
She's also leaning down to give an underhook hug. It's too cute, too powerful. Also, note that Chase, who talks shit all the time, isn't saying shit when he sees Blazer hug me. He's just letting me enjoy the moment. With how hard he was on Busy moments earlier, the silence is deafening. Later on, Blazer says Chase is so proud of the man Robert has become. I think it's specifically this moment right here that he's proud of. Damn, alright, I'll shut my ass up. Good job, Robert. Holy shit. The same scenes, but with different contexts, do feel a lot different though. The railroading to the one sacred timeline can be neat. Blonde Blazer saying, "See you tonight," after the romance exclusive hug, feels very different from if she's just a friend to your girlfriend. If you don't admit you're Mecha Man, Chase will give the same drunken speech at your party as if you did, which means he doxes your ass. That probably makes him a lot worse in your eyes.
We don't need to be Mecha Man to be a hero.
Chase,
Damn. Yo.
wait, Roberts?
Man, it's Tag! Oh, shit! Chase, get your little black ass out of here, Tag! Goddamn old ass Future. Man, come on, move!
Oh, right. Said house party? Such a massive game highlight. Contrast is a powerful tool Dispatch uses, usually for comedic effect, sincerity and normalcy broken up by crassness. But in this instance, contrast is used to demonstrate the change in Robert. Robert is dealing with the potential loss of his ability to be Mecha Man, alone, in his boxers, drinking, talking to his dog in a dark apartment. This was also where he was at the start of the series. But with a glowing hell portal, light forcefully enters his apartment. These dumbasses have no creativity for housewarming gifts, but they all bring their own unique lamps, their own lights into Robert's home, his life. His house is warmed, more alive than the cold, depressing serial killer state it was in before. Robert watches on at a distance, content, an introvert at heart, literally me, but then is dragged in by your love interest, who is gleeful to see you and dance with you. Of course, naturally, my heart explodes. No, Busy, why are you so sad? No! Smile, not protected. The song Radio that plays is more on the romantic side, but it does capture Robert's life truly being changed by these new people. From years and years of getting beat down and suffering on his own, to his friends helping him out without his asking, because they love him. We are currently experiencing a loneliness epidemic, and the scene feels like a glimpse of a fantasy a lot of us don't get to experience these days. I played Radio on repeat for the whole week after the episode was over, reliving the good vibes from this scene, the feelings of this episode. We find the astral pulse in a warehouse. The last time I went to a warehouse, I got jumped, almost died, and had my life ruined. So I decide we need a plan. I didn't necessarily mean to wait a whole night like Blazer said, but still. Contrast again is used, ruining the high atmosphere of the party when Chase crashes out on Busy. It almost feels out of nowhere, but he's made no secret he doesn't like her from episode 2, and is blasted right now. The reason he's so heated is that you're the closest thing Chase has to a son, to family. You are both all you have left. I realized this after he said his dick didn't work.
Another thing I can't do anymore. Fuck. Maybe why I say the word so much.
It's dark humor, but he's goddamn 39, and for the crime of helping people, he got robbed of his future. It recontextualized why the hell he was so defensive over Robert. He's wondering if he wasted his life helping people. Implicitly, he's likely wondering if Robert will waste his life being Mecha Man.
You ever think about why we do what we do? Help people. Put it all on the line for someone who won't ever know your name, who won't send you a thank you card, won't be at your bedside when you get hurt.
It's just the right thing to do.
And from his point of view, Vizzy would get people killed just so Robert can be killed. After a disastrous exchange, things cool off and you chat with Chase about life. But then you find Vizzy having done the plan anyway, by herself. To be fair, it was under siege, but still, she refuses to leave when Robert tells her to. She says this is for my sake, but if she's ignoring my wishes, is she really doing it for me or for her? 7 makes it pretty clear. But the fact Robert, nor Vizzy, or Chase were saying anything about calling other Z-teamers, I knew something was off. Hell, why not call Blazer herself, who clearly wasn't drunk, is crazy strong, and can fly, and is my girlfriend? Since Chase was right next to me, it was a giant blaring sign that, yeah, he was gonna die to save Vizzy's stupid ass. Chase is very funny and always looking out for you, and seems to be respected a lot by Blazer. He, like Vizzy, is also voiced by a real actor, Jeffrey Wright in his case. So naturally, he would have to bear a lot of dramatic weight in the script. While I overall decently enjoy what we got out of the e-celebs, you are not asking Jacksepticeye or Charlie to do anything meaningfully dramatic.
Fuck you!
So I really should have seen something dramatic happening to him coming, especially with how likable he is. Why even bring up a downside to powers at all? So Chase runs, with a smile on his face. He takes a crooked, roundabout path. He was taking his time, enjoying his final run. He saves Vizzy, takes one last look at the moon, and falls over. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Only through thinking back do I realize a big reason he's been so kill them all about the Z-team the whole game is Shroud was his teammate and murdered his best friend, and almost murdered his best friend's son. Suffice to say, he's got trust issues, especially with literal villains. Him ranting about Robert not needing powers is a reflection on him. It's projection. Chase doesn't need to be Trackstar, have powers to be a hero. Robert doesn't need to be Mecha Man to be a hero, and potentially die like his dad and grandfather. And, sadly, like him. These are all really neat ways to understand his behavior, but I sort of wished he talked at all about why he acted that way. The subtext is there, but for a lot of players, unless you make it a full moment, I don't think many will make the same realizations I did. I only did so because I had a week to process the episode. I suppose you could make an argument that him dying without explaining himself is a life cut tragically short, but the flashback in episode 7 shows more context on his character was still on the table. Still, episode 6 is clearly great. So, yeah, then episode 7 happens. This is where the cracks of lacking episodes start showing up in force. To be clear, from a direction and performance standpoint, still stellar. Great somber mood from the cutscenes to the dispatch sections. When the idea of cutting Vizzy is brought up, I'm immediately against it. She made a mistake not out of malice, but ignorance. And Chase chose to potentially sacrifice his life to save her, probably with the idea that she could do good. It's the only way to honor his last act in my eyes. My mind was already made up when the Z-team brought up that they wanted to cut her, but it's still weirdly effective. This is the most serious they've ever been, so it's jarring and emotionally convincing when they're moving together as a group to cut Vizzy. What's an obvious decision is still hard to make. It's again where I'm glad I have faith Robert can persuade them better than I ever could. The locker room scene with Vizzy is so heartfelt and nakedly vulnerable, figuratively and literally. Setting up red augments as a sign of Shroud was a good setup to Vizzy's reveal. Any kind of eroticism of showing her chest is gone. The scar is the big deal. Vizzy's expressions and emotions are really incredibly detailed. It's very easy to get sucked into the vortex of shame and guilt. She makes it clear she tried to get the astral pulse back, more for the guilt she felt for what she did to you, rather than making you happy. Robert is proven correct, in that Vizzy and Chase had similar energy, because they both project. When she says,
You can't fucking forgive me? You haven't even, processed what's going on.
she's actually saying she can't forgive herself, and hasn't processed what she's done.
Might need a minute, or several minutes, hours, days.
Weeks, years. Yeah, I understand.
If I haven't made it clear, I think Vizzy is a great character. Clearly the emotional heart of the story, a story about redemption. Amazing acting, layered writing. I just think it's funny because she's clearly not a great choice romantically, and also seemed to have been made with cuckoldry in mind. The reaction from Vizzy getting rejected is probably the most detailed, beautiful cuckoldry ever put to animation. Not even Ralph Wiggum had such a detailed heartbreak, and that kid got frame by framed. But the weakness of this episode isn't in the execution, but the foundations of the material. Everyone at the Z-Team is miserable and saddened, which doesn't make any sense. They don't even know him that well. He was the dispatcher in the cubicle over, probably managing some other team. He, stood in on Robert's meeting? That's about the most we saw him interact with the Z-Team. They don't really bring him up before this episode happens. Did they all secretly think Trackstar was sick? They didn't mention that. Was he that fun at the party? We know he was Blazer's trusted confidant, but he hated the Z-Team and wanted to cut all of them.
I'd normally say cut her, but the way things are going, I'd cut the whole damn team. You need a reset, Robbie.
I know the story wants to carry on the heavy emotions from Chase's sacrifice, but there's not enough story to justify this level of reaction from them. Also, people are way harder on Vizzy for the indirect harm she caused, when Flambe literally tried to kill me 2 days ago. Everyone just laughs it off because they're stupid, but he didn't even say he was sorry for that. He says something about being let back onto the team.
You all let me back in when you didn't have to.
But he wasn't ever let off. That's the most blatant referencing to an episode that didn't happen, that was likely cut. I glassed the bartender, because Telltale meme.
Does glassing mean hit him with the glass? No!
I thought it meant maybe give him
I thought it meant, because when I said that.
But also, Robert has dealt with so much crap, with so much patience. Some dick insulting the two people he loves most in the world is the last straw. Then we get the sick Shroud reveal, and the obvious villain twist of the fired hero. He's cool and calculating appearing, and the twist is, there was no twist. It's still the same guy that broke out of prison, but he's old and raggedy as hell. The thing is, you've barely seen him the entire game, and his main motivation is something he says over your beating. So most probably won't process it, me included. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna read philosophy to Rocky mid-match and have him process it. He does babble something about how you can't fight evil, you have to control it, but it's never brought up again. His character is generally just supposed to be threatening, contrast Robert, and have a weird personal code. And it's effective overall, I guess. And speaking of no twist, Blonde Blazer. Blonde Blazer was clearly intentionally supposed to give the vibe of too good to be true, so that you'd think there's something nefarious going on.
She is so cool. You don't see what's happening, and it's so obvious. They're honeypotting us. What? It's an attractive spy woman who lures men into doing shit they're not supposed to do. Do you actually think she just so happens to have everything you find attractive? Bangs, giant tits, glasses? They're fake, man. Fake glasses?
On top of that, in 6 episodes, even if you date her, you barely know her that well. When Blazer breaks into the bar, there's a clear silence and very ambiguous dialogue to potentially make you go, wait, are they working together? But that's quickly dispelled in a moment that vindicated every Blazer enjoyer when she goes full intimidation mode. proving herself to be, as Shroud says,
Now that's a fucking superhero.
The problem with this twist fake-out is that Blazer's screen time is so small, most players won't even build suspicion for her in the first place.
Doesn't look like anything to me.
When I brought up the idea to Inko about potential Shroud plans, Inko thought Chase was more likely, since everyone liked him, and he had a connection with Robert. He couldn't perceive Blazer as evil because for a twist to mean anything, you need to actually know someone. Otherwise, there's no feeling of betrayal. The idea that all the screen time of what's supposed to be a major character was cut to make her more ambiguous for a twist that failed for a vast majority of players sucks. Hey, another casualty of a lack of episodes. Her even finding the player doesn't make any sense. Robert wasn't even missing or anything. It's been at most like 30 minutes since he was in that bar. He didn't send out a signal for help. She just happened to be stalking you and tracked your phone.
How'd you find me?
I tracked your phone. Sorry.
It'd make more sense if she was working for Shroud and thus was told you'd been strung up. But as is, yeah, this entire sequence doesn't make much sense. So all of LA is under siege, and with how serious it is and how important SDN seems, it kind of raises a lot of questions to me. I don't really understand what SDN is at this point. We're telling the mayor what to do?
The mayor is refusing to listen to reason. Could you perhaps lend a hand?
We're the only crisis line out there in the case of supervillain attacks at this scale? There's no National Guard? We have fully stocked hospitals? Multi-story basement levels? What kind of paramilitary, para-government organization are we? It's so hard to gauge because we seem so vital in this crisis situation, but we also do stuff like hacking bidets if people call us to. But overall, I can't really say much here. Episode 8 is just pure emotional gratification. It's an incredible tough dispatch section, full of cool ludonarrative moments like Blazer saving a failed mission.
Oh, what the fuck is this?
I've gotcha.
And then being able to copy her with Prism's power, which coincidentally is literally what happens in the following cutscenes. That really worked out for me specifically. It was great. Then it's like 40 minutes of cool, exciting fights with thrills. Every character gets to be cool, show their powers off in full display. As the art book says, the Z-Team shows synergies they've never even really thought of before. Age Restriction Man, who I thought was just a haha funny adult animation gag, turns out to be a game-long setup. Robert, instead of fighting him directly, dispatches the correct superhero for the job, Dick Puncher. It works narratively and comedically. It's awesome. I actually made a point that the original Mecha Man suit was as boring and as sauceless as you get, but the roided up Mecha Man suit shows that that was a clear narrative decision. It makes Robert's new suit that much cooler, again, as contrast. The killer move of Dispatch. It was shocking how much cooler and also stronger the Roid suit was, but thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense. Robert's old suit was a literal relic, just his dad's suit from like 20 years ago. Robert was just burning through his inheritance, keeping it running. Roid is an engineer and scientist man with cutting-edge tech and resources. It makes sense the new suit is that much better, that Robert is so much stronger with his new crew than he was solo. And when all hope seems lost, a hero arrives. Chase coming back stronger than ever thanks to Blazer's amulet is a pure feel-good moment. Maybe it cheapens his sacrifice, but it's still incredibly awesome. Also incredibly confusing if you romance Invisigal, because Blazer's amulet would come out of nowhere. Game is worse if you pick Invisigal, again. But I really just personally love Robert's speech at the end.
You're right, I can't outsmart you. Because, you know what, I'm not a smart guy. So the only way to keep you from knowing what I'm doing is to not have any idea what I'm doing. Which is how I feel all the time. But I trust my gut and I take my best guess. Just like you used to do. Before you plugged all those fucking Christmas lights into your head. Before you were afraid to make your own decisions. Elliot.
It's this weird meta-acknowledgement of most players' experience playing the game. You, the player, didn't really know exactly how things would land, would work out. We aren't Omega geniuses, but we went with our gut and made our own decisions. In Robert's instance, he had to take a risk he had no idea would work out or not. But that's how life is. Having his antagonist, his contrast, be someone that lets AI make all of his decisions for him was a solid idea. However, Shroud's predictions were something that were only really properly established right before the big fight with him, so it doesn't hit as hard as it could, but I still love that speech regardless. And then, I'm finally confronted with the decision to kill Shroud. There's no rational reason to let him live, like I said before. But then, I agonize over it, and then...
You would do that? Kill Shroud?
Shroud killed him, Chase. There's only one thing I can do.
You know that's not true. I'm not sure your dad would want it that way.
You're not sure. Should we ask him?
You ever think about why we do what we do? Help people. Put it all on the line for someone who won't ever know your name, who won't send you a thank you card, won't be at your bedside when you get hurt.
It's just the right thing to do.
Why did you do it?
Do what?
Sacrifice everything to be a superhero to the point of financial...
Ruin.
I'm too old to be crying.
Fuck off. No, you're not. I cry all the time.
Really?
What do you want from the store? Whatever you want.
Can I get a Twinkie?
Hey, cause you're crying, you can have two. There, bitch. You happy now?
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. Now you can be sad like 8 more times before a bottle.
I don't know. I guess I just like helping people.
What the hell is wrong with me? Shroud is spared. My faith in Vizzy made her a proper hero. Apparently, I am a proper hero, so sparing Shroud stings less. And I get the girl. Life's good.
Orgy time?
Listen, I maintain that this story needed more episodes and decisions that mattered, and I want that stuff to be rectified in future seasons. But god damn, that was a fucking blast of a finale! If what I said sounds interesting to you, then I recommend you checking out the demo to see if it's fun. As a last resort, I'd watch a playthrough from someone you like. I suppose the choice variability lets you play differently than them, but you'll likely get algorithm spoilers, because YouTube sucks. Also, most streamers likely have the censors and copyright-free music on. The copyright-free music's okay, but it's not as good as the copyrighted ones. They didn't manage to pull a Hi-Fi Rush, where the replacement is as good as the original. Overall, I definitely think the game is worth experiencing firsthand. The choice game is so key to the medium of games and their stories, you should at least be aware of what it's like. At around $30 and roughly 8 or so hours of gameplay time, personally, I was extremely satisfied. Glad I didn't have to burn the bank to experience what is probably my game of the year, too. Formerly, it was Look Outside, a really neat indie horror RPG, but after I reached the ending, Dispatch won out in the end. Telltale may have died, but like the Phoenix, it was reborn as AdHoc. This new bird is still on the path to redemption, to being better than it was before, but still, it's a damn beautiful and glorious bird, and I'm happy it's flying again. Alright, low F fort exit. No more video. It's over.
It's over!